Okay. Oh shit. I don't know why it's now just giving me those updates.
Welcome back, bro.
I don't know if my super is tuned to be drifting. Ooh, let's go get my money. I'm gonna have to turn up the volume. Turn up the volume. Gotta have my own kind of radio playing, you know. Button's broken on my controller now. Good to know. As long as I... That's fine. It says my bit rate's at 0. I doubt it. I don't think I'm gonna get very much money for this. Nope. Anyways, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the stream. I'm just doing this live. If anybody has questions and anything like that, I wanted to do a quick tutorial-esque assistance on tutorial on drifting. Because when I play online, I get into these communities of people that don't know how to drift or want to know how to drift, or they can't sustain a drift. And I just kind of want to do a whatever car and show you in this game the steps in which you can go to make a car into a drift car, essentially. So let's just reclaim my Corvette, the 2015 Corvette. Maybe we'll turn that into a drift car. I might already have it. Yeah, I already have that, so I'm gonna gift it. I have a super wheel spin. Maybe I'll pull like a Hot Wheels car out of it or something, and we could do that one. Give that to a new player. Can never sell that thing, and there's like so many of them floating along. Like, I see those cars everywhere. They're just floating around. Just give it to a new player. From Bro. Alright. Where can I change my settings here? I forgot about ads. Can't use that. Is there a streamer mode? Yeah, you could probably turn that off for now. There we go. So what we want to start with is just finding a whatever car. But before we get into it, since this is a stream, let's go do some casual drifting. I thought it said I had one. How many gears does this thing got? This isn't balanced. This car needs a tune. Got too many gears too. So this car actually needs to be modified. See, right there was the shift that increased my torque that threw my ass in too hard. And then the weight of the car is just carrying it like that. So I'm gonna finish this car up real quick, and then we will go purchase a whatever vehicle. No, we'll just do that right now. Let's get into the recording of the actual video. This will be edited in the future so people can have answers to how to drift. Okay. What's going on, guys? And welcome to a video where I'm going to show you the in and out of drifting in Forza 5, Forza Horizon, and other games. This is information that you can utilize and transfer in the future over to other racing games. To start off, I'm just going to buy a whatever car. Particularly, I'd like to buy one that I don't have, but if I have to buy one that I have, whatever. And I'm particularly interested in showing you how to turn a car into a drift car within Horizon 5 in particular, although the skills that you will learn from this video will translate over to other racing games if you so choose. So the Crew 2, the Crew 3, Forza Motorsports, Project Cars, things like that. So for starters, we want to look for a car that is particularly either a 4-speed or a 5-speed. Lower gears means that it has more room. It needs higher RPM to shift in some cases, depending on the power of the engine. This isn't universal by any stretch of the imagination. But normally, if you have something outputting, let's say 600 horsepower on a 4-speed, it is not uncommon for the diff to become a welded diff and for that car to become a drift car or converted into a rear-wheel drive car with a lock diff for drifting. So let's do this Magnum since I don't have one. We're going to make a Magnum drift car. Magnums are by default a front-wheel drive car. That's just how they come. Is there a Hellcat model of that car? I don't even know. I don't follow the Magnums. Let's just go with a racing stripe. That'd be fine. We're not too concerned about that. So this is during the Hot Wheels update that I'm doing this tutorial. So there are new cars and things like that that I don't own just yet. So here we have the Dodge Magnum. This is the hatchback model. I know there's a non-hatchback model. I've ridden in one before. So the first thing we want to do, and we're going to maintain stock engine. I always maintain stock engine. But we're going to go in and we're going to... Oh, it's a stock rear wheel. I thought it was a stock front wheel drive. I stand corrected. I'm going to go with twin turbos just because I like the lag. We're going to need the front cornering tuning. We don't need the rear tuning. So I'm not going to go with it just because I want to do this the hard way and show you that any car becomes drift viable. So we're just going to do drift compound. We're going to stance it so we have more grip on our turns. We want the best clutch. We're just going to grab the drift transmission for the easiest tuning. And for the differential, we're just going to grab the drift differential. It's essentially just a lock differential so the wheels spin. If you don't know how differential works, you turn your car, the right-hand rear wheel will engage more powerfully than your left-hand rear wheel. So you're turning right, so that wheel is going to spin up and it's going to help it careen through a turn. That's essentially how differentials work. It's not an exact science by any means, but if they're both working in tandem perfectly, or a welded diff as we call it. I don't know why I keep saying diff. We want the vehicle light. We want it to slide and not have body roll. So we want as little top weight as we can and as much bottom weight as we can. So throwing in, say, a roll cage is not going to help you. It might help you in real life, but for a video game like this, it's not useful. We want the best anti-roll bars we can get. We're going to throw on the drift suspension and the best brakes just because. We're getting into the engine. I like the sound of this one. Race fuel for the horsepower. Race ignition. I like the sound of that one. The best cams we can get. The best valves we can get. Best block. Best pistons. We want the best compression, because we want to output that power very quickly. I just put on the highest intercooler because I always do. And that's essentially it. Like that's all we really need to do starting out drifting. Well, you could take this car out as is and drift it if you want. We're going to do a little bit more fine-tuning once we're on the road and I have a general idea of what I'm doing with this car in particular. This car has a little bit bigger rear end. It sticks out a little bit further, and it also is a four-door, so it's a little bit longer of a car, so this should drift with quite a bit of momentum. Got to keep that in mind. But we don't want to just floor it out of here. We want to... It's like a good road to practice it. I already feel my first problem. The body roll is too much. That's going to throw me out of these corners. You can see the corner in the top right. I have my controller. So you can see how I'm doing it. You'll see me playing with my RPMs quite a bit. Sometimes it's better to just not. Alright, so we have a general idea of what we need to fix already. But just for clarity's sake, we're going to pull up our tuner by pressing the T on the key, and then we will have access to our friction rates, our suspension rates, our body acceleration, our tires, etc., heat, and damages. We're actually going to look at our suspension first, just to see how our displacement is looking. And if you don't know, some drift cars are actually welded perfectly to be flat. They don't want any suspension movement, which is probably something we're going to be doing with this car since it has a lot of weight and it's not displacing its power very well. I don't know if these are stock V8s or stock V6s, but certainly feels like a stock V6. This is not like when I had my Mercedes. It doesn't feel like that. My Mercedes would just displace its power too fast. It's got good weight for corners. Of course, now it's raining, so. In real life, you want to avoid redlining as hard as I am. That's why people don't use aluminum blocks usually in drifting. It is not common to see aluminum blocks in drifting. You'll see that in like short track racing and things like that. But yeah. You can see the car's got quite a bit of weight, but its power isn't being displaced very well. It's something we're going to have to look into. Let's go ahead and do a quick car mastery. Get my money out of it. Spin this wheel. Whatever, doesn't matter. Figure out why my controller is broken. So already we're looking at some of our first problems. We actually want our front tire to have quite a bit more grip. We're going to drop that down to 27 just so that way it has a little more grip to the road. Some tires work on the suction principle. As the tire heats up, it like liquefies essentially. Not completely, obviously. And you also have nylon tires, which work much differently. So decreasing it gives it a lot more surface area to the road. Where with the rear wheels, we want it to have a harder and less surface area contacting the road, which is why you would change your camber and your things like that in other games. But in this, you actually can't do that. So taking a look at our drive ratio, it looks like our first drive can actually be thrown higher into the acceleration category. Same with our second. We're going to put that at 210. And our final drive, we're just going to close that gap up. Fix our top end. We don't want our drift cars going too fast, but we do want them to be able to hit pretty high speeds. This is obviously not meant to be a drift car in this game. It's probably more meant for muscle car races and things like that. So take that into account. So here's our toe and our camber. We actually looking pretty good, honestly. We can go ahead and drop this back to negative or +1. That's all fine. So here, okay, this one's interesting. So our rear is naturally going to be higher than our front, which means the internal body paneling will probably be straightened out. That way you don't feel those degree differences in their stock cars. So what we're going to do is make this 6 and bring this up to 6 and then just find a good flat terrain. That'll work. 5.7 by 45, 5.7. Bump stiffness, I typically don't end up changing, but I will change our front cornering. Change this to the front. That way we have a little bit of momentum to throw around. And here's one of our other issues. Our diff wasn't completely locked. So we can go ahead and make that a 98.2 and check that out and see how that ends up making the car feel. Did we change our... I don't think we did. We also need to change our springs to stiff. I like to have about a ton plus in the front. And then I'll go roughly 100 over the front. I'll do this at like 240. And this might not work for you. You might have to play around with it to get it more comfortable for you. But this is my atypical. So you can see we have a lot less play in our springs on acceleration. We're cornering a lot harder. I have a lot more room with my RPMs to play around with. And now my turbo lag is less noticeable in my shifts. I can get a lot more cleaner, long line drifts now with those slight modifications. And off-road, you can see the springs are freaking out. The thing about off-road is your tires can lose their heat because there's a lot more air gaps. And if when taken into account in a video game, it does make the rally feel a lot different. But as you can see, with these settings, you can pretty much learn how to drift any vehicle you want. And let's take a look at the camber here. You can see how the tires are sticking out and are angled in. That is to increase the surface area of those tires. We can take a look here at heat. And we can get a pretty good idea of where our tires are touching and not touching. So you can see the blue is where the tires are cold. That's where they're getting the least amount of pressure on the road. And on the rear, the inside is black, which means there's no heat at all on that portion of the tire. But if we do a burnout, you can see the inside of the tire is staying relatively cool. We want less surface area, and we want our front tires to remain consistently in the yellow, blue, where our rear's in the red. That's the tire that we're tearing apart. And as we sit on the edge of the tire, we want it to warm up. That way we're getting that grip back. Just like that. And then we're off a drift and they cool down. So now you can see how you can play with your camber to get that correct tuning for a proper drift. There are different types of drifting that you can do within games that should probably be explained as well. You have your torque drift, you have your trick drift, you have e-brake drifting, you have drop drifting, which is very difficult, and you have stunt drifting. So trick drifting and stunt drifting are two different things that should be made very clear. A stunt drift is more like the Ken Block style, amusement park style, drifting around a specific item to then have a show or something like that put on. And that's stunt drifting. No, it's trick drifting. Stunt drifting is rear entries, 90 degrees, paralleling, very difficult. A lot of the stuff that you see from like professional streamers that do insane tier drifting, which is something that I play around with, but I'm not very good at. It's something that I do with communities who are organizing Forza events or crew events for drifting. So I can go ahead and give you an idea of what each one of these things are. Let's hit T. What I want you to pay attention to is the top of the screen where the little icon pops up. And I'm going to show you the difference between an E-drift and how that affects your line, as well as a regular drift and how that affects your line. And then at the end, we're going to do some basic stunting and tricking, so you have an idea of the differences. So let's get into this. We'll do it up here. So coming into this corner, you can see I'm letting off of the gas. I want my RPMs to lower. And then I'm just simply turning into the regular turn and accelerating hard. For an e-brake drift, I'm going to accelerate and then tap the e-brake to engage the drift. So right there, that's a regular drift. And then up here, we'll do a parallel. That's a parallel. We're just heating up our tires with that burnout. And then we're going to come into this corner. We're going to accelerate the whole time and then e-brake. But we did it late, so I ended up overshooting it. We can do another parallel here. And then into this turn, we have enough torque. We can just do a regular drift. Accelerate hard, e-brake. Maintain our line. Drop off the gas, get our torque back up, drop off the gas. And then we can do this corner without even hitting the e-brake. Heat up our tires a bit. This line, we're going to need to use our e-brake. Feather our throttle to keep our RPMs down. Watch our momentum. And that's that. We're not going to do a drift zone here on this video right now. So that is pretty much the basics of what those different types of tricks are. So let's go ahead and set a location. And I want to show you a couple of really cool spots where you can practice different styles of drifting. Obviously, you have your basic well-known ones like the here up at the mountain. This is the most common e-brake regular drift, or as we call it, JDM drifting, because it's up a mountain, down a mountain, which is very common in Japan. If you didn't know that, now you know. Obviously, you have your city, which is normally found with people drifting, you know, D-class, C-class cars, slower model cars that are lightly modified to give a more authentic, heavy-weighted feel to how a car would drift. Typically, I see a lot of people with race wheels racing in this area, or drifting in this area because of that. Up here, you have the Copper Canyon Drift Run. This is a dirt drift run. Most typically, I see people driving rally cars that have hardened tires and things like that. Different events, people throw different drifting events, so they'll have their 3 cars. They'll have their one for the city, they'll have their one for the mountain, and they'll have their one for Copper Canyon. And this is usually the most common communities or where you can find people practicing their drifting. But there are other phenomenal areas for practicing, especially if you are new. One of them is, of course, the festival. This is a great spot for you to do basic tricks drifting and things like that. There are events here where or areas that you can do trick drifting. Also at the other horizon area, this one, the street scene, a lot of trick drifters here. A lot of people stop here to do their trick drifting. And then we have I always forget where it's located because it's the one I go to the least often. Right here. This would be your long run. So a lot of people drift this entire section here. Or they'll take this road and do the entirety of the map. This is usually done with tandem drift communities. People who get lines of cars and they try to all drift in tandem together around the map for a video or something like that. This is usually high speed drifting. It's a lot of e-brake management. It's a lot of tap management. Tap management is brake tapping. If you've ever seen a drift car driver, they'll have their clutch, their left foot on their clutch, and then they have their brake and then their gas. And they will, it's called heeling, but they'll heel the gas pedal and press it with their heel, and then they'll toe with the right foot. So that way they can lock portions of the brake and hit the gas to increase RPMs in the engine and then displace it to the engine to engage a drift. We don't do that too much in video games right now. A lot of people will do what's called double tapping, which is clutch in, accelerate, drop the clutch, mid-run. So you're engaging the clutch in order to build up RPMs without sacrificing speed. This is something that you can practice in the game, but it's not commonly seen. A lot of people will just do what's called left tap, which is just hitting your regular brake. Since in video games it auto shifts you into reverse, we can do some here. So I'm going to over accelerate into this corner, probably be in third gear, hopefully. And what you'll see is me just redline the whole thing, and I'll engage my brake every now and then just so I can change my trajectory. We want our front brakes to lock up and change the momentum. So, oh no, I'm too sideways, tap it. Even though I wasn't too sideways, but we can, let's see. That's a 2 tap right there. So with real life and video games, especially if you live in the north, you would know this. When you're driving your car and you're drifting, you want to make sure that when you're sliding, you're not slamming on the brakes. Slamming on the brakes will not help you. In most situations, you want to tap the brake over and over and over again. You want to continuously engage it, decreasing your speed like that. And I don't know if in this game in particular, if anybody has done the timing, if slamming on the brakes is faster or slower. It's probably slower. It typically is. But right there, it didn't work out in my favor. This car's heavy. It also seems to have the weight centered very on. So I'm using it to shift my gears down too. I'm using it automatic for simplicity because I want people to be able to just use this video as a basic guide of how to drift within Forza. So, yeah. So let's go do some stunt drifting over here, just so you have a general idea. I'm not the greatest stunt drifter, especially in a car I don't know. Stunt drifting is not my specialty. Long distance speed drifting, which is something I'll show you, is more my specialty. So what I'm going to do is utilize this, the right hand there, and up here. Those are the things I want to utilize for this drift. Let's go pick up this car too. So after I show you this, we'll go pick up that car. And then we'll turn that into a drift car as well before the video is over. But notice I'm not doing too much with speed. That's normal to hit that. Well, that's essentially what trick drifting is. That's a pretty good explanation of a good spot to practice. If you are very, very new to learning how to drift within a video game, or even with wanting to learn in real life and you have a car wheel set and everything like that, number one, and this is probably the most important thing that I wanted to get across to people, is go to your settings, go to your difficulty, and follow these settings. Set it to anti-lock off, steering and simulation, traction control off, stability control off, shifting automatic or manual depending on how you want to play, driving line off. Just switch this to cosmetic, especially when you're first practicing. If you want to do damages later on, have at it. Before we run and go check out other stuff, there is this spot here. We call it the warp hole. If you are a brand new drifter and you are trying to figure it out for the first time ever, this is where I want you to go. And I'll show you exactly why, and then we'll go pick up the car. If you don't know, maintaining a drift car like this is not easy. The car is pulling me all over the road. So this is just a big roundabout. And what I usually do with people that don't know how to drift is I bring them here as a way of teaching them. So once you have the car of your choice that you want to drift, whether that's a Formula drift car or anything, go on this outer ring and then just slowly go around the ring. Try to control the vehicle as best you can, and then you'll notice that at a certain speed it starts to turn. I want you to feather your gas and try to get around this as best as you can without overspinning your vehicle. As you can see on my controller, it's actually a lot of intricate movements to make sure you're doing this right. But once you have that and you can get around it, do it both ways, get it left, get it right, you'll be doing pretty damn good for yourself at that point. It's a great way to learn basic controls. You can practice getting really tight, staying in the lane, not shifting lanes. You can practice shifting lanes. Once you can get those lane movements down, you can practice that on the road, getting around vehicles, getting really tight daredevil scores and things like that. But like I said, we're going to go get this car. We're going to fast travel there to be make it a little faster. And then I'm going to show you guys some of the drift cars that I built. And I have some recommendations for people as well. Maybe this person gave me a good car. We'll see. Maybe it'll be a trash car for building a drift car, but I'll still do it. It's all on the lottery.
Wow, that's generous. Well,
We'll
that's
see.
the spirit of Horizon, isn't it? Shall we send a thank you?
Could be a very low power car. Interesting. A 1983 GMC Vendura G1500. That's the V6, right? All right. The game is, but well, let's see. Let's see if this Nope. Money, though. Take it. So we gotta go to GMC. I'm gonna be building a drift truck. Or van. I don't know my alphabet. GMC's right there. I'm an idiot. I already have one. This drift, it is a drift. Okay, so I've already done a drift. I did a mystery van drift car. So let's keep it stock. We'll keep the stock engine. We'll do everything as stock as we can. I hit the wrong button. I'm hitting the wrong button. If you guys don't know, if you're fast traveling to the home locations and things like that, it costs you nothing. So don't use your map to fast travel home. Just use the start menu and it's free. I don't know if it was meant to be that, but just a little tip if you're trying to conserve money. All right, so it's got a very low threshold for shifting. 4,000, 5,000. So it'll do about 6,000 RPMs before the engine blows. So let's go ahead and make that rear wheel. I like turbos. I like the lag. It's who I am. We want front end air control. I want that for the memes. I want to take that to white for the memes. Drift compound. You can see when I changed the tires, it was a little bouncy. So for the front, I'm just going to increase that. I'm going to keep those narrow. We'll just make them a little bit wider. Why not? Will this let me stage my tires? Probably not. Ooh, our first issue. Okay. So this car doesn't have a drift transmission mod. So we're going to have to use a regular transmission. So I get to teach you that kind of stuff too. Now we're getting into RPM management and transmission management, which is a little bit more complicated. But I recommend people play around with it anyways. We're going to slam it. We're not going to be able to stance our tires from the looks of it. We can strip the weight of it. We're going to need as much power as we can get out of this engine. Actually, do we... I think we want to keep our stock. Yeah, let's keep those stock. Sorry for the audio bug. I don't know why my game in particular has it. I've seen other people have it as well, but... Now remember, I'm keeping this with the stock engine. So it's 373 horsepower, right? Not a lot of horsepower. We're going to go to our tuning. We're going to keep our front end a little bit lighter. All right, so here we have our tuning. So we're going to put this at 430. We're going to put this down to about 240. Bring this down. And we're just going to simulate what a drift van here would look like. So we just want to extend those out. Get rid of those entirely. Go in here. Bump up our rebound a little bit. This thing's going to have a lot of body roll. It's very tall. So we need these stiff. We need these as stiff as I can get it comfortably. That should be fine. We're going to need our front end grabbing at all times. This is going to need cornering skill. We're going to need to balance that out a little bit. We do want that one higher, which that doesn't make sense, by the way. Unless it's using millimeters, centimeters, and things like that, then it does. So we can go ahead and test this out, see if it does it. Let's see if there's any funny paints I can throw on it for the time being. I'll gift this and get rid of it. Let's do a U-Haul van. That'll be funny. And this should give you all the information you need to make a drift vehicle. So here we go. What we want to do is first check our burnout. Not great. Our acceleration's not good. It's possible. Torque's really low. Torque is very low. So what we're going to do is go into our gearing and just raise our acceleration up to about 310. Again, we're not going to worry about our other gearing. So for this vehicle, we actually seem to want to have these even higher in acceleration. We want to displace as much power as we can as quickly as we can. So we might have to play around with all of our gears here and bring our top speed quite a bit lower. Just fine. Feeling like 5.4 might be our best bet for a drift. Hear that turbo spool up. We're getting our boost. We might need better cams. Yeah, it seems like we probably are going to need those better cams. We're going to have to increase our RPM threshold quite a bit. I was hoping that the lower RPMs would give us the power output that we needed. It's looking like it's not due to the low horsepower of the engine itself. So, just going to go back to customizing. Throw this on there. That'll extend our RPM limit by quite a bit and increase our horsepower by about 300. Just modifying the cams on a vehicle is huge. So if we accelerate, this should do a burnout from stop. You can see our red limiter there in the bottom right hand corner is quite a bit higher now around. So we can go ahead and hit T. We can check our heat. So our camber could be changed for the rear. As you can see, it's doing a lot better. So this would be used more for high-speed drifting or tour drifting. And once you pretty much have this kind of stuff down, you'll be able to drift just about anything. That's a lot of weight. Holy cow. Watch our G-forces. Differential needs to be bumped up to 97. Not even a G into your seat. That's insane. 1 G is about 9 pounds. I believe it's across every square inch. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Might be across every square foot. This is another great spot to practice your trick drifting here. So I did a pretty damn good donut around that, right? So with that being said, we're going to take this up to the mountain and I'll show you some of the more e-braking methods that you can do with your vehicle. We're going to switch vehicles, of course. I'm going to do the initial DA Toyota. AE86. I know cars. Let's go ahead and switch cars, and then we can go into that real quick, and then that'll be it. I can cut that all out into a video. Do this. Jump over to Toyota. I could read. I don't know how to read. I'm too dumb. There it is. We're going to take the Bruno GT Apex, which is the initial D car from the anime Initial D. We're going to go ahead and turn that off so you guys can see everything. I didn't know he jammed out if you had the music on. That's funny. Oh, it's because it's a skill song. All right. So we're going to do some what would be considered JDM style drifting here. In particular, in this scenario, I want you guys to pay attention to the controller in the top right. I want you to watch how I do my finger management, how I manage the car as I'm drifting. This will give you a good idea of how to roll your wheels, how to let go of your brake, what is a double tap, all the other things that I've taught you leading up to this point. When you begin to do this, you should be able to maintain a drift through the entirety of this track without issue once you have a little bit of practice in. This is a rather difficult, at least for me it was when I first got into it, drifting hill. I recommend you take whatever car you chose. I mean, any car in this game can be converted into a drift car essentially with the right practice and tuning capabilities. And if you follow the guide here, you should be able to tune your car into pretty much any type of drift car that you want. So let's go ahead and get into it. I don't know if this thing even is a drift car. That wasn't very good. No, there was that. Something's wrong. Oh, one of my family members messed with my car. That's okay. Oh, wow, they really fucked up my car. Okay, hang on. Somebody fucked with my car. Sorry. This is like iconic car. This is the drift car, if you didn't know that. I want it stock. I want it rear wheel. I want it turboed. I only want that. What? No. I would like a little bit of downforce. Some people like a lot of downforce on their rear end, which is fine. You can do that if you want. Oh, wow. That's why it wasn't drifting. It had slicks on. That's weird. Why did they put a roll cage in it? Flywheels Heavy flywheels will change how the car handles and turns and spins and everything. Light flywheels are better for drifting. End of story. Don't care what anybody says, because they only rotate in one direction, which means the car will naturally want to go in that direction. That's kind of how torque works. And regardless of what it is, a flywheel has torque, and it'll actually affect how the car handles and turns. So having a light flywheel is better. And I've had people argue with me about this in the past, and I don't know how they're arguing with me. To me, it's like, are you dumb? Maybe they are. I don't know. You want as little things affecting the movement of that vehicle as you can. Doing our typical rebalancing of the acceleration, stiffening it up, just our usual. We don't want body roll on this car. This car's very light anyways, so it shouldn't have a lot anyways. Gonna do our cornering, fix up our braking, that way it's in the front so we can use it for momentum. Change this to 97/3. I like 97/3. You might not be comfortable with 97/3. If you're not, that's fine. Play with it. Now let's do it. Mind you, we're still in first gear. I was looking at a car to buy that looked like a Truno, but it was like, I think it was a Porsche, and I was like, oh man, I would love to do an initial D build on a, I think it was a 922 hatchback Porsche, and do the paint job in the initial D. I thought that would be so cool. Got no momentum, so you'll find that this car just is way better for long ranging. I was also looking at a Super Mark II. I was like, oh man, how cool would it be to put like a GTR engine in a Super Mark II and twin supercharge it or something. But the one engine that I was looking at was aluminum, and I was like, oh man, is it worth it? Do I trust it? It was a GTR engine, it was just aluminum, and I hear they're really good, but that's a lot of cooling I would have to do as well, and that just seems like a lot of work. Oversized radiator would probably do all right, but once you start getting into turbo cooling, it's a whole nother story. I guess I could double tap the oil tank and just put in another oil pump and then double up the radiator or something. Like an oil radiator, intercooler. So when you're drifting, I want people to keep in mind that being sideways isn't always what a drift is. Like completely sideways, like a 90, that's not always what a drift is. It could also be the skill of getting around a tight corner like this, and then banking into another turn. I always tell people their goal for this mountain should be about 500,000. Once they're hitting 500,000, they're usually doing a lot better than they think. That counter should only stop for about 2 seconds while you're driving up this. That was bad. Let me get my momentum back. You can see I'm not really doing much e-braking unless I absolutely have to. This is regarded as one of the harder corners by a lot of the community because it's so long, but it is doable in just about any car. I've done it in the semi-truck before. I'm two-gearing about the whole thing. I only hit third gear, what, one time? You can see the difference in a third gear drift here. Yeah, that completely changed my momentum there. Here's another pretty hard corner. I didn't hold the drift through that. Didn't have the torque for it. Is there an SMP going on? RP. The rule of the driving line is always outside to inside on a turn, right? And I want people to remember that because it's essentially the same rule with drifting. So I'm going to go back down it, hopefully maintain this skill tree. It's just your timing of when you want to engage your turn kind of changes. Also, you have like trading paints, corner tapping, things like that. That's a different form of very, very highly precise drifting, which is clearly something that I have not mastered yet. That's about it. I didn't touch the wall or anything like that. I don't think I hit the wall there. If it says demolition, let me know. This is the hard one I was telling you about. Got a cop behind me. That's awesome. That's funny. I want to hold my 3 here because I'm going downhill. This is a very high-speed section. Again, you can see with the controller how I'm managing my speed. See, that was a no-brake drift there. I just let off the gas and let it slide. That was pretty aggressive. That was along the wall there. Sometimes you miss a corner. That's fine. Lost control at the end. You hate to see it. Finish up the hill. And for the last part of this episode, what I'm going to attempt to do is show you a stunt drift. No promises that this is going to go well. They're very difficult. They require a lot of practice with every vehicle. I don't have a lot of practice with this vehicle. But let's go ahead and try it anyways. I got nothing to gain by not doing it, and then we will be calling this an episode. And I hope it was informative, helpful, and I hope that I see more people actively drifting in Forza 5 in the future with future updates. So, let's get it. I was early. Let's try it up here. Very difficult. Nope. I can do it. Okay, let's try something around this corner that's typically viewed as difficult. Nope. I get too nervous. Show you a 360. Okay, right here, right here. I mean, it wasn't quite a rear entry, but it was close. Let's try a 180 turn. Too early. I'm a drift car, dude. I can't go. I love the Forza community. Anyways, I promised to show you guys my library of cars, and if you're still watching, hi, thank you for still watching. So let's just show everybody real quick the fun little library. Why do I have two controllers on screen now? What is this then? Interesting. That happened. That guy's following me now. All right, so in terms of just cars in general, I have quite a few of them. If they're marked with the bottom left-hand corner with the slide icon, it means that I've tuned that car to be a drift car. A long time ago, I had a challenge with a friend to do every single car in the game that we could possibly get into a drift car. If you don't know, the Sprinter Torino GT Apex is an extremely expensive car inside this game. Extremely rare as well. So we'll start with Acura. So I did a Drift NSX. I'm going to point out the highlights of cars that I would say you should do drift cars with. So the Integra Type R 2001 was an awesome drift car. It's super cheap. It's reliable. It has awesome tune abilities. It has a lot of modifications to look like a sweet tuner car. A very good drift car inside of Forza Horizon 5. Next is going to have to go to the Audi S1 2005. I really enjoyed turning this car into a drift car. Audis are typically known for their all-wheel drive, but this thing with the rear-wheel drive package and everything drifts extremely well. It was very fun to build. It's just another one of those cars where it just drifts well. It's easy to throw together, as well as the RS6, also a very good and fun drift car to throw together. I recommend the RS6 first. It's a little bit heavier. It's also older looking, tends to get some conversation going, and it's fun to drift as well. Getting into the Bentleys. Neither one of these are drift cars. Didn't really enjoy turning the Bentleys into drift cars. Not a big Bentley fan personally. Luxuries just tend to not drift well. That's why I got rid of my Mercedes. It ended up just being an overpriced drag machine. Not fun. Talking about real life again. Same thing with my Saab. My Saab just, the transmission couldn't do it. and I didn't have the money to put a whole new transmission into it. I also had a Ford Escort and had a perfectly fine um, engine area, but putting engine mounts in it and things like that and getting a V6 or something that would fit into it that I could turbocharge just wasn't realistic. So that didn't work out either. The next one that I would recommend inside the game is the M5 2008. It's a very popular BMW. You'll see a lot of people driving the M5 2018 and M5 2012. Um, just a very popular BMW, but both of those are very good drift machines. I know in the comment section, people are going to be like, wow, why do you have so many of the Forza rear spoilers? They look terrible. Um, it's just for cornering and speed and changing up the aerodynamics of the vehicle. Spoilers, I know a lot of people think they're really dumb. The only time spoilers are super dumb is when it's a front wheel drive car. If you see a front wheel drive car with a spoiler, that's dumb. Uh, it's just stupid. Unless you live in an area with a lot of snow, then having a fishtail, duck lip, duck bill, whatever you want to call it, then it can be a little bit helpful. If you'd want to know what a duckbill is or ducktail, M4 Coupe 2014 has one on it. It has a scoop off the trunk. That just allows the air to scoop off of it while you're driving, and it pushes your rear end down. It gives you an artificial weight when you're driving on snow and rain and things like that, and stops you from hydroplaning and stuff. Very useful. But yeah, spoilers very often get a bad rep amongst the community. M5 2003, also a very good one. The M3 1997, I know that's currently built out to a rally build. Still a good drift car, as well as the 1991. As you can see, that's a drift car. The ATS-V 2016 Cadillac, also a good drift car. I actually prefer the sedan, the four-door sedan in this regard. The CTS-V sedan 2016. The sedan, the length of it really gives you a fun weight to throw around with the Cadillac. Cadillacs are rather heavy cars, if you didn't know. The 2019 ZR1, also a great drift car. The length again, the power, as well as the Z06 2015, also a very good drift car. ZR1, not a very good drift car. I'm not sure what happened in the conversion from 4 to 5, but it used to be a very good drift car. Corvettes typically are regarded as decent drift cars, as well as, your Hondas, your Toyotas, your JDM manufacturers are usually lumped into what makes a good drift car, but there are phenomenal American drift cars if that's something you're interested in. I've seen quite a few people do Ford Fusion, I believe it was. Yeah, Ford Fusion, coilover package, retune, cold air intake, and a single turbo, I believe, typically. Single large turbo. Commonly it's what is it? The Cummins 6-cylinder diesel, I believe that's what it is. It's that turbo, that one in particular. But often also people will go to junkyards and get Ford Escape turbos, the smaller ones, or they'll go on Amazon and just get the supercharger for induction. And that usually will allow those cars to have just enough power to drift. They'll also take off the mufflers and run a differential and everything like that. So they'll get a rear car axle or a rear truck axle and stance it wider with an axle and a drivetrain to be rear wheel drive. So make sure the vehicle is rear wheel drive. You can drift front wheel drive cars, but it's a lot of weight management in the front and lightening up the rear and over pressuring your tires in the rear, and uh, it's more of a control the front end as the rear end kind of just fishtails, and it makes it really weird to do slides because once you start sliding, all of your power and everything is in the front, so kind of like drifting an all-wheel drive, but you have no control over your rear end. So people will sandbag the rear and things like that to add weight to the rear in order to have control, but they'll strip everything out of the rear of the vehicle to slide. Very odd. Very rare. You don't see that too often. As you can see, the ZL11LE 2018 Camaro, also a great drift car. Probably one of my favorite drift cars in the Camaro lineup for this game. I've tried all of them, but the ZL1 2018 in particular seems to do a little bit better than the 2017. I think it has something to do with the weight of the vehicle, but I'm not 100% certain. Going back into the Corvettes, the 1995 and the 2002 are a great introduction to drifting. They're common. You can pick these up off of the auction house for cheap, build them out into a tuner and or tuned drift car. Awesome. A lot of people already have Formula drift cars. I actually don't recommend you start out on Formula drift cars because they will completely corrupt your idea of drifting. But if you're more into trucks, the Toyota Tacoma TRD here, the Dirty, or the Dirty Chevrolet Silverado, both awesome for practicing drifting. Very fun, long body. That extension on the cab makes it super interesting to drift. Recommend, very fun. The SRT Demon, which is currently not built out to be a drift car, is a good drift car. I recommend it, as well as the SRT Hellcat there. All of the Vipers are awesome for drifting. I love the Viper. It's got so much power. Very good for building your drift car. You can see the SRT10 is a drift car there. The Magnum SRT8, which we did in the beginning of the episode, wasn't too bad, honestly. It's very heavy. It's a pretty difficult one to practice on. I would recommend something a little bit smaller with higher horsepower, with less weight. Something in the Volkswagen lineup would probably be a good start. Now we're getting into Ferrari. All of the Ferraris will drift amazing. Their displacement is just through the roof. Even stock, they'll just drift without problems, power slide in this regard, because they won't maintain that drift, but they'll power slide, which is pretty cool. As you can see, I have the FXXK down there, or the FUCK 2014 Ferrari, the 94. As you can see, it has a STU 949. Very high displacement, fun to drift. Not a drift car. People in drift events will usually giggle when they see Ferraris, but if you can hold a tandem in the rear of the line and things like that with that car, it just shows your skill. Those communities will be very impressed with stuff like that. So 365 GTB, also a very fun Ferrari to drift. The 250 GTO, which is currently not. It's currently a meme when I went to a meme lobby, but very fun drift car as well. The Mach-E, extremely heavy, very fun drift car. The problem with the Mach-E in this video game in particular is your torque displacement is wrong. It seems like they were more or less looking at things from the displacement of a horsepower-based engine, which is incorrect. As somebody who builds electric vehicles for fun, my motorcycle will, on asphalt, do an all-wheel drive burnout. Yes, all-wheel drive. With me sitting on it, and it is horrifying. The displacement on electric engines is horrifying. It's amazing. The horsepower is garbage. Ranger Raptor, also a fun drift. Drop it to the floor. Very difficult to drift, but very fun, especially as a meme in drifting communities, if you can control it. Otherwise, you'll probably just get removed from the lobby. The Fiesta RS 2017 here. I recommend the Focus RS 2017 to be a drift first. It has the wide body stance, which gives you more visibility on where your rear wheels are. Very good drift machine. Falcon GTF 351, also a very good drift vehicle for starters. Very fun. FPV limited. Ugly meme. If you can pull it off, you can pull it off. If not, not worth it. Don't bother. That's about it from Ford. I recommend the RS 2013, also a very good one. You can see it's not modified, neither is my Puma. Both of those will be turned into racing vehicles and not drift vehicles for low-class racing, for special events like I think it's 600 racing events with your friends. Those will be converted into that. Escort RS Cosworth. I know some people think that's a bastardization of that car. Kind of is, but even though it's an iconic car, awesome drift car, rear engine, very heavy. Same thing with the Toyota MR2, very heavy in the rear. Real life, a Pontiac Fiero typically not utilized for drifting, but when built for drifting in a specific way, very fun. As you can see, both my Cosworths are drift cars in this situation, both years. In the RS 2000 up there, which, by the way, an RS 2000 is technically a Cosworth. It just depends on the conversational context. I thought I would throw that out there. The Escort RS Turbo, very fun car. It's actually one of the cars I want to own. Also a good drift car in this game, but it's not modified for it now. I think that's because I was using it for S1 races, yes. And really else in the Ford lineup. So here we get into like the Formula Drift. All of these are going to be awesome for drifting once you learn it. Specifically the RX-8. Particularly the RX-8 is one of my favorites. I'll show you why. I don't know if my brother might have changed the tuning on it. Go to just make sure the tuning's correct. It is. He changed it. Okay. Let's just retune it and I'll show you why I love this car. Oh wait, I want rally on this. That's right. I need to lower it all the way and do a cost. So for some of the Formula Drift cars, they're locked with their height, and I find that really annoying. So I highly recommend throwing rally on it and then doing it yourself, because it's really frustrating. A rally drift car typically will have a locked suspension and have it pretty much on the ground. So you just do that manually and it'll work out just fine. I want that 3.5. That's my typical build for this, just so you're aware. The reason why I love this is because we don't see very many rotary drifts very often anymore. And I think it sounds so good. So when you want to do like rear entries and stuff, Formula Drift is kind of like your cars of choice, because these are going to be your stunt cars. They're properly built for it. They're also just super cool. Anyways, back to the cars. With Formula Drift, I just want to be very clear that just because it's a Formula Drift car doesn't mean everybody's utilizing these as drift cars. These cars are also awesome to modify into regular race cars in this game. So a lot of the time you see these Formula Drift cars, people will be utilizing them for like really crazy acceleration with specific builds. They're not commonly utilized at this point for drifting unless you're an inexperienced drifter. A lot of people are going to be buying GTRs. They're going to be buying Toyotas, Hondas, and turning those into the drift cars. High horsepower drifting is not that big right now in this game. From what I've seen, a lot of people are drifting things from the 600 to 1,000 horsepower range, which in real life is crazy. For this video game in particular is not that crazy. You can see people drifting things in like the 200 horsepower range as well. People like myself who will go out and specifically drift in meme cars and things like that and be at the back of a tandem line. Just because I find that very fun and interesting. So if you have all of these, the ones in particular I recommend you practice with would be the 240SX, the Super Mark 1, the Corvette Z06, the MX-8. Is that what it's called? An MX-8? I think it's an MX-8. The Mazda RX-8. There we go. So then we get into the Formula or Forsberg. Nothing really too fun here. The gold leader, the Porsche here, or Datsun rather. Very fun. 280Z. It can be converted into a drift car. No real reason to do it. All the weight's in the rear, from what I've felt. It has the big fishtail and things like that on it, so not very fun for drifting, but it can turn some heads. It's pretty fun with the right build, of course. The Vanduras are fun. I mean, I just showed you drifting the U-Haul. Pretty fun. The Jimmy 1970s is a legendary 4x4. I mean, this is up there with the Bronco. Legendary truck. Very fun to drift. And we're getting into the Holdens. I don't know if some of the newer Holdens are in here. Holden is a um, Australian company. Does you drift Mercedes Sprinter? I will after I do this. When you get into the Honda lineups, these are the most common drift cars that you're going to see online. Just about every Honda car, except for the NSX in my testing, is a great drifter. The S2000 is very fun. The Type Rs are very fun. Honda's got a reputation. You know, a lot of people meme on Hondas. Some people hate Hondas. Some people like Hondas. I'm indifferent to Hondas. I've driven Hondas. I've raced in a Honda. I've done drag in a Honda. I've drifted a Honda. They're whatever in my book. If you're going with Honda, go with an old Honda, 1991 or earlier. Just understand the meme. Hoonigan, you'll never own a real Hoonigan, but all of them make for fine drifters besides the Bel Air. It is what it is. I find that they make better rally cars for whatever reason in this game in particular, except for the Hoonicorn. Hoonicorn does an awesome job being a drift car. Is what it is. HSV. I mean, the Gen F GTS is pretty great. It's very commonly, at least from what I've seen, modified with the 6-cylinder turbo diesel. So if you're looking to drive one of those, they're great. Honda's most reliable brand. Yeah, I mean, they have a huge aftermarket selection, especially if you're into tuners and you're not one of those stockers who want to keep their car completely stock. Hondas are great for that. Yeah, I agree. The Hyundai Velocidor is a great drift car. I haven't modified mine yet, but I see it quite regularly online, and I'm not 100% certain why. My neighbor owns one, and he let me drive it, and they're really nice cars. Very cool. The Q60 Infinity, awesome brand. Very rare to find them in video games these days, but I've seen them tuned to hell and back. Awesome cars. I've never modified this before. International. Very rare to see that band. Kelly design. It's a sweet car, but whatever. Jaguar is not a drift brand. Not a drift brand. There's really nothing. The Stinger. Yeah, I love the Stinger. It's a beautiful car. Velociter Stinger and the Hyundai X80, I believe it is, or H80. Beautiful car. Yeah, I wouldn't bother converting any of the Jaguars into drift cars. We got the Jeeps. They're Jeeps. What can I say? If you're going to make a drift Jeep for a meme, the Cherokee SRT is probably your best bet, or the Trackhawk. I mean, it's a Trackhawk. They're fast as fuck. If you've never seen videos of Trackhawks doing drag, insane. So I could only imagine that's going to make a great drift SUV if that's something you wanted to build. But that's probably going to be more accepted in like a meme lobby. Cohen Sag, no, not really. You wonder if they have the Stinger. I can check after this. I'm not 100% positive either. I mean, Lamborghinis, they're light, they're very high torque, very high horsepower. Yeah, I mean, if you want to build a drag Lamborghini, go for it. Awesome cars. I drove quite a few Trackhawks in real life. They definitely pack a punch. Absolutely. All you need to do to make a Trackhawk stupid powerful is a cold air intake, expose the radiator a little bit better, tap your oil pan, put in an intercooler so that way the engine runs a little bit cooler, and those things will absolutely devastate most drag strips. And the amount of work that a Trackhawk requires to be fast is like minimal compared to so many other cars. The only problem I have with Lamborghinis is they have horrible control and handling. And if anybody's driven a Lamborghini, then they know that. For some reason, they like their softer struts and stuff like that. It's very weird. Oh, they can easily destroy a Hellcat. Yeah. I mean, Hellcats, I mean, an unmodified Hellcat, but modified Hellcat? Absolutely not. Lexus. Oh man, the LFA is a phenomenal drift car. The engine is insane. It sounds so good. The RCF also incredible, amazing drift car. The SC300 iconic. Lola, not drift cars. Lotus, the only Lotus I would recommend you build is the Exige S. Really, the only one that's commonly utilized as drift car. About it. Maserati. I wish they had it in the game, but the Maserati Bi-Turbo is actually the go-to Maserati for drifting. But if you really like Maseratis, I'd have to say do the Gran Turismo S Forza edition. It's really going to be your best bet for a drift car. Mazda, all of them. Mazdas all convert into wonderful drift cars. Uh, when I was doing drift days in my local area, I saw so many Mazda drift cars, and I mean so many. And I'm not just talking about Miatas. I'm talking RX-5s or MX-5s, 323s, not the 1992 one in particular, but a lot of 323s. And I don't know why that's the case. From what I understand, is Mazda's engines or their transmissions to adapt a drivetrain to them is like stupid easy. So they're pretty common in that regard. The Savannah RX-7 is one of my favorite cars of all time. Throwing that out there. McLaren, don't know, my phone is a McLaren. I get to say I own a McLaren. I wouldn't turn any McLarens into drift cars. They will do it just fine, but their center of gravity isn't going to be your best friend. A lot of them are rear engine, if not all of them are rear engine. It's just not worth it. As for Mercedes AMG in particular, because Benz and AMG are different. The C63S Coupe, awesome, and GTR 2017, awesome. Everything else, very heavy. Definitely more meant for track. Not going to be your best friend for building a drift car. To get to the Mercedes-Benz, I mentioned this earlier. I owned a Mercedes-Benz and E86 8-cylinder special edition. Garbage for drift. Garbage for drift. Can't really recommend any of these other than the 190E and Hammer Coupe. Both of those will make great drift cars, and so will the AMG Coupe Black Edition, which is the C63. I guess you could do an A45, but like from my testing, none of them have been phenomenal. The way it is. Mercury, Myers, MG, the X-Power SVR is a awesome little drift car. And if you want a meme, do the Metro 6R4, even though it's a rally car, would be funny. Mitsubishi, all of them. Obviously, the Eclipse GSX. One thing to note about Mitsubishi, their engine's displacement is weird. Okay? So if you're not driving a Starion or a GTO and everything else, it drives weird. They have weird shift rates. It's just weird. They have a lot of lag. Very weird cars. They tend to begin their drift on a shift up. So it's a lot of watching your RPMs before a turn and then hammering it to get it to shift, drop the boost, and then begin your drift. Very strange. Not the greatest. Morgan, whatever, who cares? Morris, whatever, who cares? Osler, nope, track car. Nissan. Quite a few of the Nissans in this game actually suck for drifting. I just want to go over to the ones that are good. R35, 370Z 2010 Common Edition, the Fairlady Z 2003 Common Edition. As you can see, I have two of them. The GTR V Spec 2. If you take that into a lobby, they will say you are bastardizing that car. Do not do that. or buy a second one just so you could be like, I have a second one. Don't worry about it. The Arrow, awesome. GTR LM Nismo, not a good drift car. The Fairlady Z Verizion, very good. GTR V Spec 1993, good drift car. 240SX, obviously. Sylvia Club KS, obviously. Skyline GTSR, obviously. Those are iconic for drifting. Manto 400, if you can pull it off, great drift car. If not, keep it as a rally car. Fusion 2000 or the 207 Super 2000 2007 is the only one so far that I've tested as a drift car that came back as decent. Otherwise, it was just kind of garbage. Firebirds. I mean, I'm very upset that this game doesn't have the Fiero in it, but that's the closest you're gonna get. I actually prefer the Trans Am over the Trans Am GTA Forza Edition. Comes down to your use case. I think the tire wells are too narrow and they need to be extended out with a wide body kit. Kind of like how the Firebird Trans Am common version is staged, but it is what it is. Porsche, obviously, all of the Porsches have crazy displacement. They're going to be great for your drifting needs. They're Porsche, for crying out loud. That's what they do. They make crazy cars. The ones in particular I'm going to have to recommend are going to be the newer ones. They tend to be more balanced in their displacement. About it. Yeah, I have a 968 Turbo S. It's one of the cars that I was actually looking at purchasing in the 944, but I couldn't find any for sale. Renault, all of them. They're a very eco-friendly company, so none of them have high displacement. Subaru, you'll blow a freaking head gasket, don't bother. Beautiful cars, though, and in a video game, very fun. Typically, they're best on rally. It's just the way it is. I have it at WRX STI for testing in 2005 and 2004. Neither one of them did that great, but they're fine. Toyota, I mean, there's so many recommendations here. 80X, or 80X, 86, RZ, Delica GT, RZ Starter Pack, Supra 2.0, Bruno, Delica. Like, a lot of them are great drifters in this game. So if you're looking to build out your first one, good place to start. As for Monaro, I would just do the VXR 2005 model. The VXR 2016 seems to make a better rally car. It's the way it seems to go. Volkswagen, lower powered stuff is great for building out your first drift car. In fact, I actually highly recommend you pick up a GTI VR6 Mark III, the 1998 model, or a R32 Golf, or a VR6 Corrado. They're very low displacement, very low horsepower, very fun to learn on because it teaches you how to manage your speed, manage your stopping power, manage your e-brake and everything like that to maintain drifts at the best rate. Also, these cars typically tend to keep up with the rear side of groups that are practicing online in tandem drifting, and it allows you to pretty much just watch how everybody else is drifting and learn from their example. The Pickup LX 1982 is an epic, incredible drift machine. Incredible drift machine. Same with the Sirocco S. Both of them were great. Into the Volvo line. Polestar 2015 makes an awesome drift car. Mine's not tuned for that currently. It's for off-road rally. And the 850R 1997 is a very fun drift car. Very unique in how it handles itself. So that's going to do it. So he wants me to drift a Mercedes Sprinter. Do I have a Mercedes Sprinter? Is it in the game? $80. I don't think it is. No. I can do you one better. and that whole family died. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope it was extremely helpful. I know this is a very long video, but I hope to teach people how to drift. I think it's super fun and super interesting. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed it and you subscribe to the channel for more content, more tutorials, more things to do, more things to see. I have more stuff coming up very soon. This was just a goof off. I tend to do these every now and then. Guitar Hero, Forza, all kinds of stuff, and some educational content like how to build a computer, how what parts to get, things like that. The whole channel is educational. If you didn't know that, the majority of my channel is discussing the mechanics of video games and exploring different video games that do things differently and talking about where they went wrong, where they did well, as well as an entire podcast for you guys to check out, the Omni Obscura podcast that you can only find on this channel. So subscribe for that if you're interested. With that being said, I hope you have a wonderful day,